Battle was a living thing, and it was Islette's chosen environment. She waded her Timberwolf into battle at half throttle, twisting her torso from side to side in search of targets. A lightweight kit fox caught her eye. It too was unengaged and in search of a foe. She obliged by ripping into it with her PPCs. The high-energy beams struck true, blasting great goblets of melted armor to the ground where they lay smoking. There are few battle mechs that elicit as much immediate concern, if not outright terror, as an enemy Timberwolf. The 75-ton Omni-Mech has become synonymous with the clan invasion of the Inner Sphere ever since it was first spotted on the Rock, a planet within the Oberon Confederation, in August of 3049. However, its story began roughly a half-century earlier as Clan Wolf sought to replace the Woodsman, one of the earliest Omni-Mech designs. When Clan Coyote successfully implemented that Omni-Mech technology, the prospect of quickly modifying and repairing battlemechs was immediately recognized as a tremendous advantage that it was. It was in so many ways the culminating technology on which the clans could demonstrate their technological superiority. The clan Omni-Mechs had distinct advantages over the clan refit designs, even though they themselves had issues as first-to-market technologies. The Coidal, Lupus, and Woodsman would eventually be replaced by even more streamlined Omni-Mech designs. In 2945, the Clan Wolf scientists tasked with coming up with a design struck gold with the creation of a swift, heavy battle mech which seemed to have the perfect mixture of speed, armor, and pod space. The Timberwolf would end up being an invaluable tool in reinforcing the power and prestige of Clan Wolf. It was also a mech that the Wolves guarded jealously, fighting off many of the other clans in trials to procure the plans for the design. The most famous or infamous, depending upon who you ask, Clan Wolf Timberwolf Mechwarrior had to be Vlad Ward. A true-born warrior born in 3026, Vlad's career would span the original clan invasion of the Inner Sphere, through Tukayyid, the Refusal War, and even the Wars of Reaving. While his actions were sometimes considered underhanded, it's difficult to argue that he was anything but a staunch defender of Clan Wolf. Vlad's battle mech of choice was the Timberwolf, following his first experiences in the mech early on in his career. It seemed fitting that a wolf warrior would build an affinity toward a mech that was so iconic for the clan. Though frequently seen in its primary configuration, Vlad was known for frequently swapping out the pods in order to keep his opponents off guard. It played into the advantage of the Omni-Mech technology and led to many victories over the years. Part of Vlad Ward's legacy was the preservation of the Timberwolf as a viable battle mech long after it was considered obsolete. It was under his orders that a new production line for the mech was constructed on Weingarten within the Inner Sphere. Even though output from the factory was limited, it secured a future for the iconic battle mech after the Wolves left clan homeworlds. Vlad's counterattack came swiftly and savagely. The large and medium lasers played their red and green beams over the Stormcrow's right flank. Warning klaxons screamed in Kai's cockpit as the lasers melted the last of his armor and started on the mech's frame. Kai glanced at the monitor and watched his right flank redden, but he saw no vital systems getting hit, and he knew he had been very lucky. The beams from the Timberwolf's left arm caressed the mech's right arm, dissipating all of the armor and roasting the limb. But perhaps we're getting ahead of ourselves here. What is it about this Timberwolf that made it such a legendary design? Let's look at what it had to offer. Constructed from Type W3 endosteel around a Starfire 375 XL fusion engine, the Timberwolf benefited from some serious business clan technology from the get-go. This mech was in no way a bargain basement design. With the 375 engine, the Timberwolf could hit a top speed of 86 km per hour, which was fast enough to keep up with its clan peers in the weight class, but could match most medium Inner Sphere mechs in the first years of Operation Revival. Its stalking frame and menacing look contributed to a psychological impact for those who faced it. The popular story of how it earned its Inner Sphere designation, the Mad Cat, came from confusion that the systems of the Inner Sphere mechs had in trying to identify their mysterious new foes. Flipping from Marauder and then to Catapult and back, eventually it just seemed logical to go with the decently malicious-sounding moniker Mad Cat. 12 tons of ferrofibrous armor provided 230 points of protection, which was slightly better coverage than the Marauder 5D or Orion M with its 14 tons of standard plate. In early engagements with the clans, Intersphere Mechwarriors reported that the clan mechs seemed to shrug off weapon impacts that would have been debilitating to a standard mech. Part of this impression was due to the extensive use of clan-grade ferrofibrous armor. Much of the rest is likely chalked up to panic and attempts to return fire outside of effective range of most of the Intersphere weapons. 15 double heat sinks kept the Timberwolf well cooled across many of its popular configurations, though some energy-heavy loadouts required additional pod-based heatsinks. Though no jump jets were built into the mech by default, pod jump jets could also be added later. The Timberwolf piloted by Aiden Pride at the Battle of Tukayyid being a good example. But we'll get into that in a little bit. Finally, the remaining 28 tons of the battle mech's weight were devoted to pod space for weapons and equipment. This dwarfed the Summoner's 22.5 tons and rivaled even some Assault-class Omnimechs of the Invasion era. Having 28 tons of mass to work with in the Timberwolf frame was the linchpin for the mech's flexibility and long-term battlefield success. The only serious limitations to the Timberwolf were structural, the first being the rather expansive cockpit ferroglass, which was great for stargazing and for looking cool, but also resulted in the cockpit and the squishy and flammable human inside being exposed to more than in other traditional mech designs. The other limitation was the trade-off from adding the XL engine, endosteel, and ferrofibrous armor. That limitation is space. The Timberwolf had 28 tons of mass available, but only 29 internal spots in which it could use that mass. 7 in each arm, 7 in the side torsos, and 1 in the center torso. This applied a constraint on some weapon systems and builds that would have otherwise worked. It was by no means a critical flaw, but opportunity cost spares no one, not even the Timberwolf. The Timberwolf stepped forward and fired its large laser at the Mad Dog. Reveal Pride kept his shots away from the torso of Joanna's mech while crippling her left shoulder missile rack. Launching a missile of his own, he directed it to a heavy branch jutting out off the cliff, which fell onto the other missile rack and knocked it loose. It merely hung there, now useless. As a fillip to the assault, he concentrated fire on the Mad Dog's left arm and amputated it from the body. Suddenly, when Joanna's weapon systems did become operational, all she could use was the right arm laser. She fired it immediately, but her shots went wide. The Timberwolf, like other Omnimechs, had suggested configurations based upon different operational circumstances. The primary configuration was heavily used as it offered a general-purpose loadout that could hit at all ranges. The two main threats in the primary configuration are the two ER-large lasers split between the left and right arms. Able to reach out to 25 hexes for 10 damage, the Clan ER-large laser packed a punch of the Intersphere ER-PPC while still generating less heat. Joining the two large lasers at long range were a pair of LRM-20s that could offer up a devastating amount of fire support for as long as the 1 ton of ammunition for each launcher held out, which wasn't very long. In the mid and short range, the Timberwolf Prime could bring its twin arm-mounted ER medium lasers into play, along with a medium pulse laser nestled in the left torso. At 7 damage apiece, these medium lasers should not be underestimated. The medium pulse laser on its own being an accurate counter to light mechs that might consider closing in on the Timberwolf. A pair of machine guns split between the right and center torso were good for dealing with bothersome infantry or battle armor. Finally, the last 2 tons of mass are reserved for additional heat sinks, bringing the total on the primary configuration to 17. Overall, it's an interesting mix of weapons that are deadly at all ranges. It is possible to overheat the mech if you're firing everything each turn, but once the LRM racks are out of ammunition, it's less of a concern. A basic understanding of heat management will prevent most problems. The primary configuration of the Timberwolf is powerful, has great utility, and few things are as fun as winning most fights you start. Just this one configuration is more than enough reason for the Wolves to jealously guard the design. Of course, by the time of the clan invasion, the other clans had their own Timberwolves procured either from salvage, the rare gift, or won in the occasional trial where the Wolves came up short. One of them ended up being piloted by the little-known Star Colonel by the name of Aiden Pride in the trials held on Tukayyid in 3052. We're leaping ahead a bit in the timeline now because what is now known as the Timberwolf Pride configuration is really just a modified Prime. I will take out Mechwarrior Carmen's Timberwolf. The Timberwolf, Horse's eyes went up in surprise. That's a killer mech. You should not call it that. Should I call it Death Trap then? That's the name for it among the elementals. Our elementals have a morbid sense of humor, always have, but it is wrong to ascribe traits to a battlemech. The fact that a few warriors have died piloting this particular the Death Trap has had more pilots than Stop, horse. I need no statistics quoted at me. I know them as well as you, and the truth is that many pilots have survived this Timberwolf. Most of them with crippling injuries or lost in madness. Now you exaggerate. At any rate, I will take the Timberwolf, and that is the end of it. Pride's Timberwolf retained the 2 ER large lasers, 2 ER medium lasers, and even the 2 LRM-20s. However, it pulled the machine guns and the medium pulse laser in favor of pod jump jets that pushed the mech's movement profile up to a 584. With the spare 0.5 tons of mass, then ER small laser was installed in the center torso. Clearly the most important item of the bunch for a rapid conflict de-escalation. Though Aiden Pride would not survive to leave Tukayyid with the remaining Jade Falcons, the Pride configuration of the mech remained popular within the Falcon Guard and elsewhere in the clan when the Timberwolf was available. Personally, I prefer it to the primary configuration as I have a well-known affinity for slapping jump jets onto things. While not as strong offensively as the Prime configuration, the Pride config benefits in utility and fun with those jump jets. Stepping back to the original production of the Timberwolf back in 2945, the alternate configuration A also sought to create a balanced mech that was deadly at all ranges. Starting with a pair of ERPPCs split between the arms, the possible 30 damage in 2 15-point shots is never something to underestimate. In short range, 3 medium pulse lasers located in the left torso add up to 21 additional damage if the dice gods smile upon you. A streak SRM-6 in the right torso along with a ton of ammunition also added to the possible damage output out to 12 hexes. Finally, that ER small laser in the center torso makes another appearance. This energy-heavy configuration also has 5 additional pod heatsinks which are needed should the Mechwarrior need to bring the medium pulse lasers into the mix along with the ER PPCs. Ignoring the streak SRM-6 and the ER small laser for now, that partial alpha would leave the Timberwolf A at +2 heat if firing at a standstill or +4 if running. While that wouldn't be an issue unless you're doing it for multiple turns, it is something to consider. It would be easy to drop 1 medium pulse laser the next turn and stay at 4 heat, or drop 2 and roll the dice on the streak SRM-6. If it doesn't lock, you're back to 0 heat at the end of the turn, and if it does lock, the missiles do their damage and you're still at a +4. That's a win-win. Overall, the A configuration is another generalist solid performer that doesn't suffer from the ammunition issues of the primary. If you're a fan of clan ERPPCs, it's going to do well on the fun scale. Otherwise, it's a solid performer in both strength and utility. If you're expecting to run a campaign far from logistics lines, an A configuration might be the choice over the Prime. Now, if you're a fan of the Gauss rifle and asymmetrical builds, the B configuration of the Timberwolf may be the option for you. The mech's Gauss rifle takes up the majority of the mech's right arm, but on the left arm, a clan large pulse laser backs it up with its always reliable, accurate fire out to nearly the same distance. An LRM-10 with an Artemis IV fire control system backs up the primary weapons and is located in the left torso. At close range, an SRM-4 with Artemis sits in the right torso along with a small pulse laser in the left arm. Of the early standard configurations, this is the first that vexes me, as it's a little bit of everything and the reliance upon just the single ton of Gauss rifle ammunition leaves the mech seriously undergunned after 8 fired shots. Between the Gauss and the ammunition for the missiles in both the left and right torsos, the mech's survivability is hampered even with the Omnimech built-in case protection. Overall, the Timberwolf B configuration is a bit of a mess without a clear purpose. It struggles in utility and fun, even if temporarily powerful. Moving on to the Timberwolf C, another original default configuration that is similar to the Prime but with a few twists to it. The 2 ER large lasers are there, but both are placed into the left arm. 1 ER medium laser remained and was found in the center torso. Backing up the ER large lasers were twin LRM-15s with 1 ton of ammunition apiece in the left and right torsos. An Ultra AC-5 was added to the right arm to add yet another long-range option along with a single ton of ammunition. Finally, an anti-missile system was installed in the right torso along with its 1 ton of ammunition. The Config C is a decently powerful threat, but once again the limitations of seeing a significant drop in DPS as LRM and autocannon ammunition dwindles is an issue worth considering for a Mechwarrior who finds him or herself far from the logistics lines. If you know you're going to be done fighting by lunchtime, the Timberwolf C is a fair option. If you're in it for the long haul, I might look elsewhere. Our next OG configuration is the Timberwolf D, and it's also the last official one in the timeline until after the clan invasion starts. The D, which everyone apparently wants, going by what I gather on social media, is the close-range monster of a loadout which gave Innersphere Mechwarriors and Light Mechs pause lest they rush in and get obliterated by an unscouted Timberwolf. 2 ER-PPCs were there, split between the arms, which isn't a surprise, but they were backed up in the short range by 4 Streak SRM-6s, 2 of which were facing into the rear arc of the mech. That is a considerable amount of firepower facing in the opposite direction of your opponent most of the time. If those 2 rear-facing Streak SRM-6s were facing forward, I think the Timberwolf D would be one of my favorite of the original loadouts. As it stands, a Mechwarrior might feel like they're never really getting everything out of the mech possible except for a specific set of circumstances where you're being swarmed by mechs from all sides and taking those snapshots on multiple targets per turn in a different arc. The Configuration D is a wild card that could be very powerful if used in a specific environment and situation. Otherwise, there are better options out there. The Timberwolf D remains a strong niche configuration with hobbled utility but strong potential for fun in the right time and place. Star Commander Pelano and Mechwarrior Aaron Carmichael opened up on the Bombardier. The Comguard mech staggered 3 steps and fell to the ground, down but not out. Both Wolf warriors piloted specially configured Timberwolf TCs that exchanged their ER large lasers for large pulse lasers. The close confines of the mountains around Burzo gave few opportunities for the Timberwolf's legendary long-range firepower. Most of Natasha's command star had opted for pulse lasers over their extended range counterparts. The Thug fired 1 PPC, then turned and ran. The lightning bolt streaked between Carmichael and Natasha. It briefly flooded comm channels with static, but had no other effect. Sensors showed the remaining comm guards in the vicinity were in full retreat. Comms, cluster tack, Natasha said. A double beep announced the open channel. Black Widow to Wolf Spiders, the comm guards are in full retreat. Form up on me and forward to Burzo. As with previous videos with mechs that have lots of variants and configurations, we're not going to be able to cover all of them in this limited format video. From here on out, I've picked some that I think offer a unique take, are particularly powerful, or have an interesting bit of lore behind them. So let's get going. Unlike the other clans on Tukayyid who vastly underestimated Comstar's willingness to use every underhanded and duplicitous tactic possible to win, the leadership of Clan Wolf were wary and prepared their forces accordingly. Besides taking a more cautious approach and avoiding underbidding of the forces, IlClan Ulrich Kerensky used the intelligence gathered through the invasion so far to predict the Comguard would seek to whittle down the clan forces and prolong the conflict in order to gradually win, rather than seek out an all-out set-piece battle. It was decided the prudent course of action would be to fit the Clan Wolf Omnimechs in a way to promote accurate fire and limited the dependency upon ammunition. For many Timberwolves in the Clan Tumen, a TC or Tukayyid configuration would aid the clan in achieving that goal. Built around 2 large pulse lasers split between the arms, the Timberwolf TC had the range and accuracy to hit back at ambushing Comguard units to make sure any attack would harm the attackers as much as the advancing clan mechs and elementals. Backing up the large pulse lasers were a pair of ER medium lasers, which added additional punch in the mid and short range. 2 Streak SRM-6s, split between the left and right torsos, added accurate and ammo-conscious missile fire in the short range. 5 jump jets were added to improve the mech's flexibility and movement, which pushed the profile to an effective 5.85. Finally, the most important addition was that ER small laser in the left torso to help with the Mechwarrior's peace of mind. The TC's 15 double heat sinks were acceptable, though the mech could run hot if firing the 2 LBLs, along with the streaks and the ER medium lasers at the same time. When deployed on Tukayyid, the Timberwolf TC's ability to leap great distances helped chase down Comguard units that attempted hit-and-run tactics. The 352nd Assault Cluster used the TC configuration effectively within the Pozoritsu Mountains to move to positions that the Comguard had assumed were untenable for such heavy battlemechs. When the 352nd was hit hard by Comguard units near Burzno, the Wolves were able to temporarily retreat to higher ground where the clan mechs could hammer down on the inner sphere mechs with advantage. Even though most of the 352nd cluster was destroyed, the Comguard paid a heavy price for it. The Timberwolf TC is a very effective configuration, and it frequently ends up mentioned in discussions concerning ideal or favorite builds for the battlemech. I definitely rank it high on my list as well for being powerful, having high utility in a variety of situations, and that fun factor is there with the opportunity to leap and hit targets with pulse lasers and twin streak SRM-6s. It also maxes out the mech's agility with those 5 pod jump jets. Now, taking a step back slightly in the timeline, the Timberwolf S makes its first appearance in 3050 and reflects the goal of creating a close-range brawler. The only long-range weapon on the S config is a large pulse laser in the left arm, which can reach out to 20 hexes. Beyond that, it's going to be a race to bring the litany of short-range weapons to bear. 4 short-range Missile 6 launchers were split evenly between the left and right torsos and are fed by 4 tons of ammunition. The prospect of being hit by 24 SRMs for up to 48 damage is humbling. Add in the 2 medium pulse lasers placed into the right arm, the ER small laser in the right torso, and 2 machine guns split between the left and right torsos, and the Timberwolf S promises an inferno for any foe it can close in on. Now, while the Timberwolf S suffers a little bit in utility by having such a niche role, it more than makes up for it with strength and fun. If you're headed into an urban combat environment, this could be the configuration for you if you're not into the Config D. Risking historical whiplash, we're going to leap forward again to 3054 with the arrival of the Timberwolf E configuration, which reminds us that the mech would be an excellent testbed for new technologies. Once again, Clan Coyote's scientist Case stepped up with the creation of a truly flexible piece of weapons technology. The prospect of a missile launcher system that could fire multiple types of ammunition based upon a shifting battlefield situation gripped the imaginations of clan leaders. Very quickly, this technology expanded beyond Clan Coyote and was integrated into Clan Tumans through new OmniMech configurations. With an integrated Artemis IV fire control system, the advanced tactical missile system offered flexibility and added accuracy that arguably made the long-cherished LRM and SRM launchers obsolete. The only downside, beyond the investment in multiple types of ammunition, was that the ATM's unique ammunition feed system made the use of other specialty ammunition impossible. However, this limitation is itself largely overcome by the 3 types of ATM ammo that could be used. The first was a long-range missile which traded explosive power for additional propulsive fuel, which extended the range of the missile to an impressive distance well beyond most other weapons available at the time, including the legendary Gauss rifle. Its only drawback was the minimum range due to the missile's multi-stage fuel system. In intermediate ranges, the ammunition designated as the Standard for ATM carried the same explosive power of the venerable short-range missile, but could travel twice as far. While impressive, it also shares that minimum arming range of its extended range peer. Finally, for close-range conflict resolution, the high-explosive ATM missiles traded fuel for an increased explosive power, causing 3 times as much damage as a standard LRM and 33 times more damage than an SRM. All of this added up to an incredibly powerful and flexible missile system. The Timberwolf E employed 2 of these ATM systems, each able to fire 9 missiles at a time. Each of these launchers was fed by 3 tons of ammunition, most typically 1 of each type. While that's just a possible 18 damage with the extended range ammunition, the danger only increases as the E configuration closes in on its prey. To boost the damage potential at long range, 2 ER large lasers are split between the left and right arms, which come close to matching the range of those ATM ER missiles. At mid-range with standard ammunition, the ATM-9s can hit for a possible 36 damage. At close range, the high explosive ammunition pushes the possible damage to 54. The whole time, those ER large lasers are doing their 10-point pinpoint damage. At a glance, the Timberwolf Configuration E's 4 weapons seem rather simple and uninspired, but once you understand the power of those ATM launchers, the true power of the mech is revealed. Potential 74 damage at close range can devastate even a heavy battle mech that is foolish enough to wander too close to the Configuration E. It's also worth noting that the E also has a light target acquisition gear system installed so it could act as a spotter for artillery or Arrow 4 fire support. It's a small but very valuable addition to a mech that can hit at all ranges but really thrives when it's up close and punishing its enemies eye to eye. Don't overlook the Timberwolf Configuration E, it is a monster in disguise.
I don't know what I can say. The first time was worse than hell. I walked away with my ass and that's about it. It was like something out of a bad tri-vid. He just appeared out of the smoke and haze and began to mow us down. And then our line broke. Our line. We were the damned Syrian Lancers, and we just broke like a bunch of children. Sam went down first. Then Vic tried to block the bounty hunter from taking any more shots on her. His Orion went up in the biggest fireball I've ever seen. Interview with Force Commander Dante Chris, Free Worlds League military, retired. The 14th of August, 3067.
As one of the most notorious, infamous, and mysterious forces of nature in recent history, the bounty hunter made an indelible impression on anyone unlucky enough to be on the wrong side of the Mechwarrior's weapons. Sorting out fact from the bountiful fiction is impossible, though some of the tales portray the bounty hunter as a reforged hero of the Inner Sphere who focused his anger on the invading clans. By late 3050, it's told that he was able to take down 3 clan battlemechs on his own and even salvaged a clan Smoke Jaguar Timberwolf, which he then put to use against his future foes, replacing his infamous Marauder. The mech, painted green and in a unique configuration, was seen in incredibly popular holovids ever since. Undoubtedly, the length of the bounty hunter's career suggests that he was very likely 2 or more people across multiple generations, and the legacy of his mysterious Mechwarrior deserves its own video. But for now, we can appreciate the unique loadout of his Timberwolf. Stacked with an advanced electronics package, the Bounty Hunter configuration offers tremendous offensive potential wrapped in a stealthy package. The 2 primary weapons were a pair of large pulse lasers split between the arms. The tried and true pulse lasers were backed up in the mid and short range by 4 additional medium pulse lasers spread across the side torsos and arms. All 6 of these weapons were aided by a targeting computer. The combination of pulse laser accuracy and the targeting computer made being hit in the mid and short ranges an almost certain outcome. The Bounty Hunter configuration benefited from an ECM suite, an active probe, and even a light tag system which guaranteed that the mech could avoid unnecessary enemy fire while still able to hunt down its foes should they seek to hide using their own electronics countermeasures. With 16 double heat sinks, the mech was heat neutral while standing and +2 into the red while running, and it meant that there was very little respite for the bounty hunter's targets. Jacinda switched her sensors to seismic and was rewarded with a clearer idea where her opponent was. He was still 100 meters away from the boulder, closing fast. She pressed a button and the remaining ammunition for her missing autocannon dumped on the ground behind her. She switched her sensors back to Vislight mode, then began creeping away from the boulder. She aimed her PPC carefully, knowing exactly where her opponent's cockpit would be. The Timberwolf came around the boulder, and she imagined its pilots grinning while preparing a kill shot. She pressed her trigger, but nothing happened. Her PPC, while still signaling green, did nothing. She pressed both feet down to engage her jump jets, but it was too late. 2 spears of artificial lightning crashed into her mech, and all her systems went dark. "This trial of position is over," Pack Leader Kang He declared from the external speakers of his Timberwolf. "You have earned the rank of Mechwarrior, Jacinda." He paused. "It is all you will ever achieve." Taking another leap down the timeline, our next official variant is the Timberwolf W configuration, as it was first given its designation in 3100 at the dawn of the 32nd century. By this point, the Timberwolf chassis had become a pretty rare sight across clan-held territories due to the end of the contact with the clan homeworlds and the attrition of continual trials and war. In an act that suggests it was done more for symbolism than practicality, Alaric Ward ordered the production lines on Thermopylae to be reconfigured to produce additional Timberwolves. When Clan Wolf eventually made its drive toward Terra, the venerable Timberwolf would be a key part of their tumen. The W configuration was dominated by the installation of an Ultra AC-20 autocannon in the right arm. This 12-ton investment in the powerful short-range weapon, along with 4 tons of ammunition, left only a modest amount of mass for other weaponry. With the clear goal of rapidly closing in on a target to bring the autocannon into play, a supercharger was added to the center torso, which could temporarily push the mech's movement profile up to a 5'10". If the thought of a Timberwolf sprinting toward you with a massive autocannon in its arm isn't terrifying, you probably have nerves of steel. Backing up the primary weapon were 2 ER medium lasers in the left arm, an ER small laser in the left torso, and 2 Streak SRM-6s split between the side torsos, fed by a single ton of ammunition. The total potential short-range damage if all the weapons hit was an astounding 83. This is far more than needed to kill any light or medium mech, and very likely most heavies as well, depending upon where those shots hit. The short-range power of the Configuration W is undeniable, though it does come at the cost of being unable to fight back at targets beyond 15 hexes, with the bulk of the damage potential not reliably accurate until 8 hexes or closer. The ammo limitations for the autocannon and Streak launchers also has to come into play when considering the use in longer battles and campaigns. Timberwolf W is strong and definitely fun when used successfully, but must be used carefully lest it become another scrap heap before it can dish out its violence. Our last official variant is the most recent, granted its designation in 3142. It also takes advantage of some newer technologies to deliver warm hugs and good tidings. If those warm hugs and good tidings are LRMs and laser fire. Oddly enough, if the Timberwolf T configuration has primary weapons, they would probably be the twin LRM-20 systems aided by the upgraded Artemis V fire control systems that were nestled in the mech's left and right torsos. These accurate weapons can rain down devastating fire. While the original Artemis IV fire control system improved the number of missiles that could hit a target, the Artemis V system developed by Clan Goliath Scorpion in 3058 also made the hit more likely. For those playing the tabletop game at home, an Artemis V equipped missile launcher benefits from a -1 to hit modifier on hit rolls and, on successful hits, a +3 boost on the cluster hits table roll. Each of these LRM launchers in the Timberwolf T configuration are fed by 3 tons of ammunition, guaranteeing that the missile barrage would feel unending. 2 additional heat sinks were added to the mech to help deal with the heat generated by both the missile launchers as well as the backup weaponry. That weaponry would start to come into play in the mid-range with a pair of ER medium lasers split between the arms and then boosted in the close range by 2 medium improved heavy lasers. At extreme close range, 2 ER small lasers and an ER small pulse laser could remind fast-moving light mechs that no distance is safe when dealing with the Timberwolf. Overall, the mech's primary draw are those LRM launchers. The improved heavy laser technology is something that sticks in my craw a bit, as the range and heat almost never feels worth the modest increase in damage. The 17 double heat sinks are plentiful in most situations unless you're forced to desperately alpha strike at extremely close range. Ideally, the T configuration would make a potent fire support mech that could also defend others in the backfield if necessary. Otherwise, there are better options out there for a frontline configuration. Now, of course, we can't wrap things up without a Mech Frog configuration for the Timberwolf. After looking at what is already out there, I think you might be able to guess at least one of the weapons on it. However, first things first, I wanted to provide at least a modest improvement in agility with the addition of 3 jump jets, which pushed the mech's movement profile to 583. Embracing the concept of a Timberwolf that is deadly at all ranges and against all targets, the Timberwolf MF configuration embraces twin tried-and-true large pulse lasers split between the arms. Backing them up at nearly the same distance is a plasma cannon in the left torso, which can wreak havoc against infantry and light vehicles, while applying significant additional heat to heat-sinked targets. An ER medium laser in the left torso can add valuable damage in the mid and short range, and finally an advanced tactical missile 6 launcher, along with 3 tons of ammunition, can make life miserable at all ranges. The asymmetrical build provides a bit of flavor with the plasma cannon while not overdoing it and creating a mech that is too niche. I think it would be a valuable way to teach the rules for a newer weapon along with the ATMs if a player had not yet had the opportunity to enjoy them. Heat can be an issue for the MF configuration, so use that plasma cannon wisely, or you could be the one dealing with the toasty cockpit. The question, why do we love the Timberwolf, isn't an easy one to answer, as it encompasses so much content beyond just an in-universe explanation. Yes, it's a powerful and well-rounded platform for some murderous loadouts that highlight clan technology. However, that's really just a small piece of the overall appeal. The BattleMech, much like the Atlas, has become an icon of BattleTech itself. It's been popularized to the point that even those not well versed in the lore can identify it at a glance. It was undoubtedly the star of the CGL Clan Invasion Kickstarter, and it is still one of the most frequently depicted clan BattleMechs in art and fan art for good reason. Its distinctive menacing look is memorable. So in-universe and out, the Timberwolf stands as a respected icon and reminder that it's not always the biggest kid on the block that you have to look out for. Sometimes it's that scrapper who never skips core day and is a well-rounded fighter. The glee that the Camospecs team showed when I asked them if they wished to contribute some of their work for this video was adorable, as it was demonstrative of the adoration that many feel for this BattleMech. I want to take a moment to thank them for classing up this video with their incredible work. Please do take some time after this to check out Camospecs. It's a wonderful website that not only highlights their incredible artistry, but also has some cool info on various paint schemes employed by the various factions and mercenary units of BattleTech. I've included the website link in the video notes below. If you are interested in taking the Timberwolf MF configuration out for a roll on the tabletop, I've included a link to that record sheet in the video notes as well. With that, I'll say my thank you for sticking around and listening to my nonsense. I've waited on doing the Timberwolf video until I felt the production value could justify it. If you enjoyed your time with me today, please do hit that like and subscribe button so that YouTube knows that I did well and might show that video to others. I really do appreciate it more than I can express with recorded words. And one more thank you to Big Red 40 Tech for offering his voice for one of the quotes from today's video. He's been a friend of the channel and is a big booster of BattleTech. Check out his YouTube channel if you haven't already. Going that extra step and becoming a channel member in even the lowest tier has a huge impact on my argument to keep this venture going. So if you enjoyed this video and are in a position to do so, your support would be appreciated. Until we meet again, take care and go make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.